Hello, my name is Ben van Wyk. Over the past 4 years, the Faculty of Engineering and the Built Environment has seen a steady decline in our success rate. What I want to present today is a strategy that I hope will reverse this trend. Let's begin with a question. Can there be success without participation? Can there be success without the lecturer doing his or her part and the student doing his or her part? I've got an idea that all of you know who this is. Can Lionel Messi score any goal without participating in the game, chasing after the ball, adjusting his tactics? In much the same way, there can be no success in the academic environment without active participation. This then begs the question, should we talk about a predicate mark, or should we rather talk about a participation score? I think from now on in our faculty, we are going to see the predicate mark as a participation score. It's going to reflect the level of active participation during a semester or during a year in the course, engagement with the course content. Let's consider a fictitious subject. Let's say EDI 352. Let's say it's a year subject and it has 20 HEQSF credits. What does it mean? If you multiply the number of credits by 10, you get the number of nominal hours. Nominal hours is the estimated number of hours that you need to participate in the course or actively engage in the course content to pass the course, to master the information. The total number of hours include time spent in lectures, time spent doing assignments, time needed for tests and preparation, time needed for exams and preparation, laboratory work, and any other subject-related activity. In fact, the time needed for each activity should be clearly shown in the study guide, and it should total to the total number of hours. So what does it mean if your academic record says you obtained 50% for EDI 352, carrying 20 credits? What are we saying? Well, TUT is certifying that you've actively participated in subject contents for 200 hours and that the average of your final exam and predicate, what we call a participation score, is 50%. Note that for NATED programs phasing out, 1 credit is 1,200 hours. Therefore, if a subject in this case carries 0.17 credits, that will be approximately equal to 200 hours, or 20 HEQSF credits. So, how can we ensure that this is true? That is, that there has been 200 hours of active participation, active engagement with subject contents. For a soccer match to take place, there need to be clear rules that govern participation. Similarly, lecturers need to know exactly what are expected of them. And students need to know exactly what are expected of them too. What are expected of lecturers? The first thing required are detailed outcomes for each study unit. There should be no uncertainty regarding what is expected from students. In other words, what the scope of tests and exams dealing with this unit will be. The outcomes for a unit should be clearly and unambiguously described in a study guide. Here you can see an example of what the outcomes associated with a unit dealing with quadratics, cubics, and polynomials should look like. Secondly, activities should be linked to each outcome. All outcomes should be linked to exercises, assignments, real-world case studies, and so on. Here you can see an example of exercises being linked to each outcome. The activities should be clearly defined in the study guide. Alternatively, you can do what Ron Berkers did. He designed a comprehensive workbook for his students. This workbook contains all the assignments for the whole course. It contains space for students to write down the answers. Some of the exercises are done in class and some are given for homework. Thirdly, support should be given to perform activities linked to outcomes. This can be in terms of a WhatsApp group where students can post their difficulties or problems, tutorial sessions, recorded lectures and tutorials students can use for reference, my tutor posts, and even the appointment of tutors to assist with tutoring of large classes. Every study unit is then followed by an open book formative assessment. The formative assessment should be directly linked to the outcomes defined in the study guide. It should focus on application and insight type questions. The activities should be similar but not identical to those the students did in assignments and for homework. I suppose the question that everyone wants to ask is why open book? Opportunities for learning and discovery are limited when we deal with closed book tests. Learning occurs when students discover that they can't answer a question and then study the examples in the textbook and assignments and figure it out. Also, if a student attended class and did all the assignments during the course of the unit, no extra preparation should be necessary. We want to avoid a situation where students skip other classes because of tests or complain about more than one assessment per day. I want to reiterate, the open book assessment should simply confirm if a student participated. It should be a learning experience and also provide an opportunity for self-reflection. What is a preferred alternative to an open book assessment? I think that will be the flipped classroom approach. That is where lectures or tutorials are recorded, they are put online, and then online assessments are designed that should be completed by students before they come to class. Similar with compulsory reading and self-study topics. these online assignments can then be a reflection of participation by students. Step number 5 will then be the assessment of open book tests and the portfolio of evidence. The portfolio of evidence are all the exercises, assignments, real-world case studies that the students did linked to unit outcomes. These can be submitted with or before the open book test. For larger groups, tutors could be employed to assist, and supervised peer assessment of open book tests moderated by the lecturer in some cases can also be investigated. The portfolio of evidence should not be a big deal to assess. It could be as simple as a tutor or lecturer verifying if students completed all the assignments and exercises in the workbook. For subjects with low success rates, we've seen up to a 20% improvement in success rate where lecturers introduced workbooks. If there's no workbook, there are also other alternatives. The most simple alternative will be a hardcover book dedicated to a specific subject. But I suppose a file containing all the exercises, examples, and so on, dedicated to a subject, might also work. As already said, the portfolio of evidence can also be online. In that case, the need for a physical workbook or hardcover book or file might be eliminated. In the case of a hardcover book dedicated to a subject, it will be very simple. There will be activities that are done in class. There will be activities that are done at home. And these activities will then be followed by a unit test, all contained in one workbook. Evaluating the open book assessment and evaluating the portfolio of evidence therefore becomes very simple. We've already spoken about a workbook or a portfolio of evidence that lives online, so I'm not going to repeat this. In such a case, there will still be open book tests, but the portfolio of evidence will be all the online activities that students completed. Very important. If there's no portfolio of evidence, it means there was no participation, and then automatically the class test will be 0. The last 2 questions of every open book unit assessment will always be the same. The purpose of these questions are to encourage self-reflection, self-knowledge, and to encourage students to take responsibility for their own learning. The questions will be: which outcomes have you not yet mastered? What are you struggling with? And if you have not mastered all the outcomes, what are you going to do about it? Obviously, it will be the responsibility of the lecturer to scrutinize these answers, and if interventions are necessary, to put those necessary interventions in place. Step number 7 will be to provide feedback. Formative assessments require feedback, ideally in the form of a tutorial, but possibly also online on My Tutor so that corrective action can be taken by students. For larger groups, tutors could be employed to assist. The final step will be to calculate the participation score at the end of the semester or end of the year. Departments could structure this to suit the discipline, as long as it's clearly and unambiguously communicated in the study guide and on My Tutor. Obviously, the way we calculate this will differ for different subjects and for different assessment methods. For exam terminating subjects requiring a predicate mark, I propose the following weighting. Open book tests, portfolios of evidence and laboratory work, 60% or more, to place the emphasis on participation, and then the semester tests, 40% or less. Obviously, continuous evaluation subjects will work a little bit differently, and departments will have to decide how they're going to calculate the final mark for continuous evaluation subjects. It should be clear that we want to shift the focus away from how well students did in just one or two tests to participation in all the activities related to the subject. I suppose the question on everyone's mind is, what about class attendance? Should we enforce it? My personal view is that I've seen far too many students sleeping through classes to give any value to class attendance. I think for me it's much more important to look at a portfolio of evidence, to look at the work done by the student and assess that, instead of simply ticking a box if the student was in class or not. I also think that in future much more activities will be put online and much more work will be required out of class than in class. So for the moment, although this might change, we are not going to make class attendance count towards the participation score. What are expected of students? Students are expected to complete all activities linked to each outcome and keep a portfolio of evidence in a book or a file dedicated to the subject if the portfolio of evidence is not online. Students are required to actively participate in support activities linked to unit outcomes. This might be in the form of online activities, it might be tutoring classes, it might be mentoring, or various other types of support. Students are required to prepare for and participate in open book formative assessments after the completion of each study unit and to submit their portfolios of evidence. The idea is that if you've done the work, if you've done the assignments, if you participated in class, little or no preparation will be needed for the open book assessment. It's only when you haven't done the work that you will have to put in a lot of hours to do the open book assessment. So, what is going to happen if you copy your portfolio of evidence from someone else? The answer is quite simple. You will struggle with the open book assessment. There's a possibility that you will not get predicate or an assessment score, and you will not get admission to the exam. Obviously, if a faultless portfolio of evidence is submitted, but you do very, very badly in an open book assessment, this is a clear indication that you've copied. You are required to actively participate in formative assessment feedback sessions, which can take the form of tutorials or even the form of online support. You are required to take responsibility for your own learning. If you need support, engage timeously. Do not wait for just before the semester test or just before an exam period. The principle is actually quite simple. I can't play a game on Messi's behalf. I can't score a goal on Messi's behalf. Only Messi can play Messi's game. No one can learn on your behalf. This is unfortunately something you have to take responsibility for and do by yourself. Therefore, respond honestly to the last two questions of every unit test and take your commitment to your own growth seriously. Take time to find out which outcomes you have not yet mastered or you are struggling with. And if you have not mastered all the outcomes, pen down a plan of action. Decide what you're going to do, which steps are you going to take, who are you going to consult, and when you're going to do it. Learn to plan and use your time wisely. If you want to complete in minimum time, you need to obtain between 120 and 140 credits per year. This translates to between 1,200 and 1,400 hours of active participation per year. There are nominally only 15 weeks of participation possible per semester. You, no one else, you, therefore have to plan for about 47 hours of work per week during the semester. If you, for example, have 20 hours of lectures per week, it means that you have to put in an additional 27 hours on your own per week. You therefore have to plan for approximately 5 hours of additional work per day for 6 days every week during the semester, in addition to class attendance. The faculty will take reasonable measures to assist you, but only you can put in the hours. No one else can. No one can play this game on your behalf. Only you can play your own game. Plan and get skin in the game. Thank you for listening to me. There's nothing I want to see more than our staff and our students working together and making a success.